Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. There's a lot of crazy human behavior occurring right now all over the world with violence and war. What are some of the best ways to stay grounded in our heart space and knowing the best time to take action? Our hearts do not prevent our heads from working. Staying grounded in our hearts does not disconnect us from common sense. Many of us say, well, I want to stay in my heart, but what about my head? When the intellect is aligned, everything moves in the same direction. You don't have a heart-mind problem. The heart-mind problem is only when they're not aligned with the truth. When the heart is wanting to do something impulsive, when it's not our intuitive heart, but it's our impulsive heart, our emotional heart, our ego heart, our desires heart. But when the heart is really the intuitive heart, the deep heart, and when the mind is not the fear, not the conditioning, but the real intellect, the real wisdom, the real knowing, then those two things are always in alignment. And when things are happening in our world as they are, we need to be there, heart and mind. It's not enough to just have an open heart to it. It's not enough to just meditate on it and cry. It's not enough to post it on Facebook. It's not enough to just sign petitions. It's not even enough to just, send a check to an organization that's doing peace work. It's great. All of those things are important. But every one of us needs to be a part in heart and in action. Mindful action. Where the mind is there, not mindless action. So the answer is not get rid of the mind. The answer is I should be mindful action. But what should my mind be full of? Not my ego. Not about what am I going to do that's going to put me in the center. Not about what am I going to do that's going to make everybody think I'm the hero. But what can I do that's really in alignment, which I know through my open heart, because my heart connects me. I was just reading today, I have a friend who is a scientist from America. She now lives in London, but she's a scientist from America who's worked at Princeton. She's worked all over the country in top universities. So not your typical New Age institute. I'm not talking about a yoga teacher. I'm not talking about, anybody from that world, but an academic scientist who has spent the last decades of her life doing research on the power of our thought and our intention to actually effect change in the world. That how we are thinking, what we are thinking, is actually impacting the world. Our thoughts are things. I'm going to repeat that because that's really important and it's not in alignment with how most of us are raised and taught. Our thoughts are things. They do not exist only between our ears. They are not just the mindless ramblings or chemical or electrical behavior. They actually have a life that moves, and again, I'm talking to you from Ivy League academic universities, that moves beyond our mind into the world and changes matter in the world. We don't have time tonight to go into all of this, but it's a subject I love, so I'd be happy to talk about it more at other times. But the point about it in this moment is when things are wrong in our world, whether it's white supremacists, whether it's people shooting up schools, whether it's terrorism, whatever the problem is, whether it's climate change, we actually have many options of action. And an open heart is only the beginning. It's a crucial beginning. And this is what the researcher found, is that it's not any thought impacts things. It has to be done with an open heart, with connection, and with great intention. What that means is that when our hearts are really open and we're really able to connect with the world, and are able, through meditative practices, to focus our thoughts and our intentions, we actually, even if we did nothing else, are able to affect change in the world. But the great news is, we don't have to stop there. The great news is, in addition to our thoughts, in addition to our open heart, in addition to our intentions, we've got hands, we've got mouths, we've got legs, we've got creativity, we've got initiative, we've got skills, we've got intelligence, we've got technology and talents to put to use. Spirituality is not about how can I be in peace while everybody is dying around me. It's not about how can I stay blissful while the world is suffering and collapsing. It's about how can I stay peaceful and grounded so that my heart, my mind, my thoughts, and my actions are in alignment with what needs to be done. It's not I should stay blissful and peaceful because I'm the only one that matters and let them all suffer and die, at least I'm in peace. It's I need to stay peaceful and grounded, or I'm not going to be an effective agent of change. I'm not going to be an effective vessel of God's will, of the divine flow. So my heart stays open. I stay grounded, because only in peace is my ego not flailing all over the place. Only in peace is my fear not stopping me from doing things. Only in peace is my desires not pushing me into something else. So I stay grounded and peaceful. I open my heart, because in that connection, I know what's needed. Why, when you've got a baby who no one else in the world understands, I mean, the baby goes blah, 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 and the mom says, oh, she's hungry. The baby says blah, 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 blah. The mom says, oh, she's got to go to the bathroom. Baby says blah, 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 blah. Mom says, oh, she needs a nap. Now, to anybody else, the blah, 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 blah sounds exactly the same. I mean, how do you decipher tears of hunger, tears of have to go to the bathroom from tears of need a nap? Well, the mother who's connected intuits it. She's not deciphering the blah, blah language. She's hearing the language of the heart. She's so connected that she knows intuitively and instinctively what's needed. And our world requires that of us today because we've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on think tanks. We've spent billions of dollars over decades, if not centuries, on ending the same problems that we're faced with today. They take different forms, but the problems are the same. And we haven't gotten any closer. What do we do about greed? What do we do about violence? What do we do about hatred? What do we do about us versus them? There's no correlation between the billions of dollars that have been spent and getting us any closer to living more selfless lives, to living more in tune with our world. So what's needed is us to be connected to the world in such a way that we actually know what's needed and are able to take those steps. And I don't mean that you have to go off and necessarily become the head of a country or the head of NATO or the head of the UN in order to affect change. Each of us in exactly what our role here is, in the roles that we play every day. Every single one of us is a part of that change. But we have to have our heart open and we have to stay connected so that we know how to move and what to do. And then we have to move and we have to act because our world today requires that. But we act from love so that that will can flow, so that we can be effective.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. What are some of the best ways to deal with disappointment and frustration? Pujya Swamiji always says so beautifully, he says, expectation is the mother of frustration. So when we think about frustration and disappointment, the treatment really needs to begin as a preventative measure. Yes, of course, we can go in and we can try to treat it once it's there. But as we know, when we deal with our physical health as well, prevention is the best cure. Yes, when you're sick, you can find the medicines, find the operation, find the treatment. But that takes a toll on us. And isn't it so much better if we can figure out a way to eat healthy foods, exercise, and stay well so that we don't get sick? And in the same way with emotional issues, frustration, disappointment, depression, all of this, again, yes, we can treat it once it comes, but it's so much better to figure out how we can prevent it. So when we know what causes it, which is very basically, as Puja Swamiji gives us, the expectation. I have an expectation that somebody's going to act in a certain way. I have an expectation that the world is going to act in a certain way. I have an expectation that the stock market is going to act in a certain way, that traffic patterns are going to act in a certain way. And when it doesn't happen, we're frustrated, we're disappointed. Now, the minute that we recognize that we have no control over the stock market, over traffic patterns, over weather patterns, over anybody else's behavior, then that expectation from the beginning dissipates. It doesn't mean we don't hope. It doesn't mean we don't plan. It doesn't mean that I never plan a picnic because I can never know when it's not going to rain. I plan. But when it rains, I don't find myself frustrated and depressed and lost. You always know, well, there was a chance it was going to rain. You invest money in the stock market. Yeah, of course you hope it's going to go up. But you know there's a chance it could go down. We build houses with a hope that there's not going to be an earthquake, that there's not going to be a fire, that they're not going to burn down or fall. But we always know nature acts, there's earthquakes, there's fires, things happen. We love our loved ones, hoping, praying, expecting that they're not going to fall sick and leave us tomorrow, that they're not going to get hit by a car tomorrow. But on some level, we all have to know, whether we admit it or not, that we don't actually have any control over these things. And that possibility is always there. But it doesn't stop us from loving, doesn't stop us from building homes, doesn't stop us from planning picnics, doesn't stop us from moving through our life. But that awareness is almost like an inoculation. If we're able to hold on to the awareness that it's not in my hands, that every day of health is just grace. Every day that my house is still standing is just a blessing. I'm not entitled to it any more than the guy whose house burned down was entitled to also have a house. I'm not better than the person who lost their spouse or children. But there's a blessing that I seem to be the recipient of. That's just grace. So the more we're aware, and the way to do this is gratitude, because gratitude is that which brings us constantly into the awareness that we don't deserve it. If you owe me $10, and I've been waiting for years for you to pay me my $10 back, and finally you pay it to me, I'm not going to say to you, oh, thank you so much. My God, you're so generous, because you owed me. I was entitled to it. It was my money. In fact, it should have been more. You should have paid me interest with it. Gratitude stems from the awareness that which I've been given is not something that I somehow deserved or was entitled to or should have had even more of, but that was a generosity of the universe, a generosity of grace, a generosity of blessings, an abundance of blessings. And so the more that we can cultivate gratitude, the less of an expectation there is, because even though we're not necessarily saying to ourselves, thou shalt not expect, inherent in the gratitude is, it's all in your hands. Another thing Puja Swamiji reminds us of so frequently is, there's trillions of neurons in the brain. One of them just one of them stops firing, fires incorrectly. Suddenly your hand that was holding a glass of tea falls and it's over. We don't have any control over that, even if we wanted to. Even if we spent all day long focused on the neurons of my brain, fire, properly, stay in line. That's not doing anything. It's grace. We don't wake ourselves up. We don't digest our food. Who digests our food for us? We just shove it in. Then we go to sleep. And by some incredible, beautiful grace, we wake up the next morning and it comes out. And we've got the energy, we've got the vitamins, we've got the nutrients, we've got the minerals in our bloodstream now. We didn't make that happen. It was grace. And so the more we can make ourselves aware every minute and every moment of the presence of grace, the less of an entitled expectation there will be. And the less of an entitled expectation there is, the less disappointment and frustration there is. Because the disappointment and frustration says, I deserved something more. I deserved to have it not rain today. I was entitled to have a picnic without rain. I deserve for you to treat me differently. I deserve for you, I'm entitled to you, for you to act differently. No, we're not. No, we're not. The universe and all of nature and all the people in it are just acting out each of our own karmic package, which beautifully is interlinked and interlocked to each other. We're connected. But each of us is fulfilling our own destiny. And my frustration and my disappointment comes when I somehow have an attachment to a hope that's against nature, that's against the flow, that's against the will. It was supposed to be sunny today. Well, no. When you've got pressure the way it is in the atmosphere, moisture the way it is in the atmosphere, a cloud soaking up that much moisture, it's going to rain. It's the law of nature. And the same is true in our relationships, the same is true in the stock market, the same is true in traffic patterns, whatever it is. So by bringing gratitude into our lives, it just continues to remind us, really, there but for the grace of God, by any name, any form, it doesn't matter. But really, by your grace, I woke up today. By your grace, that which I shove in my mouth manages to get digested. By your grace, my house has not yet burned down. By your grace, an earthquake has not yet swallowed us up. But even more, by your grace, day by day by day, I'm realizing that my own peace, my own joy, my own meaning in life, my own fulfillment is actually not rooted in those things. It's actually not dependent on whether my house is still standing or not standing. It's actually not dependent on whether it rained or it was sunny, whether my picnic could happen or not. It's actually dependent on my connection with you, which gratitude strengthens. So it works on what you could call symptom alleviation. The medicine we take for the fever brings down the fever. It works on the symptom alleviation. The more grateful I am, the less disappointed I am, the less frustrated I am, the fewer expectations I have. But it also works on the much deeper systemic preventive level, which is the more gratitude I have, the more connected with the divine I am. And the more connected with the divine I am, the less dependent I am on what the things or the people in the world around me are saying or doing. The less power they have to make me depressed or frustrated or happy or elated. Because I'm grounded in something much deeper. So it works on both levels.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. Please tell us how to have a long and healthy life. Well, first of all, quantity is not always synonymous with quality. There's a beautiful saying that it's not about how many days in your life, but about how much life in your days. We could stick ourselves into bubbles in which there's never the possibility of getting run over by a car, there's never the possibility of contracting an illness from someone, there's never the possibility of falling down the staircase. We could be fed by tubes. I mean, we could literally set up such a controlled situation in which, other than simply the karmic package we came in with, very little in the world had the possibility to steal our health or our life. But that's not a life. The moment we lock ourselves up in that bubble is actually the moment our life is over. And so it's important to recognize that yes, longevity is fantastic. Yes, we should pray for longevity. But we don't want to pray for it at the expense of quality. We don't want to be so afraid to fall from the top of the mountain that we don't ever climb to get there. We don't want to be so afraid of being stung by a bee that flies out of a flower that we never bend down to smell the flower. We don't want to be so afraid of ever getting thrown up on by a sick baby that we never actually take a baby in our arms. So we have to really understand, well, what's a meaningful life? Which, interestingly, the question says healthy, and these days a very, very beautiful intersection between medicine and spirituality is happening, in which that which spirituality has said for thousands and thousands of years about how to really live, through being connected to the divine, through being connected to creation. Why do so many of our rituals take place in nature. I mean, these four walls and a roof of a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple. This is new stuff, relatively speaking, in terms of the history of humans. Why did they used to take place in nature? Why did people gather in nature in circles around fire, under the stars, in the trees? To connect us with nature, with the natural world. That connection with the divine, in, of course, an infinite formless way, but also just as importantly in the form of that with which we are interacting on a day-to-day basis, is that which brings not only meaning, but now science is starting to tell us health in our lives. There's so many studies, and I love them. I'll share only two with you, of the role that spirituality plays. We know it plays a role, of course, in our happiness and health, but in our emotional health, but the role that it plays in our physical health. Duke University, which is one of the most esteemed and renowned research-based universities in America, did a study where for 20 years they followed thousands of people. And they watched every area of their lives, what they ate, did they drink, did they smoke, did they exercise, their relationships, their work, everything about life, to understand what played a role in health and longevity. And they found something really interesting. They weren't looking for it. That people who regularly attended a place of worship were 25% less likely to die of any cause than people who didn't. Now, that's not because we say don't smoke, don't drink, eat healthy foods, because they controlled for all that. It's not that somehow in our temples we're giving out, more organic food, or that we're running medical care programs or handing out multivitamins or something. But there's somehow actually an almost inoculative effect to sickness and even death, they found, simply by being spiritually connected enough that you're not just a paying member of your church or temple, but that you actually go. Because simply being a paying member didn't actually help people. You had to actually show up. Dartmouth University, another very renowned university with a very prominent hospital and medical care program and medical school, started asking patients who came in after their first heart attack, one additional question on their intake form. In addition to all their health background, they asked one question. How religious are you? Not religious at all, somewhat religious, very religious. And what they found was that of those who checked not religious at all, about 11% of them had had a second fatal heart attack within 6 months. Now, it turns out that's actually relatively normal. Anybody who may be a doctor, anybody who's a cardiologist knows that typically the chances of a second fatal heart attack in the first 6 months are around that. But people who had checked very religious, guess what percent of them had a second fatal heart attack? Guess. Well, you knew the answer. 0. Not just 0%, 0 people at all. No one. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean religious people don't die. It doesn't mean spiritual people don't get sick. But what it means is that there is something that is so profoundly powerful about a deep connection to something that is higher than, bigger than, deeper than just this physical existence. And there is such an intricate connection between what we think, what we feel, in what we would just call our hearts and our minds, and actually the working of our immune system, that we end up not just happier, but healthier. That healthier of the heart and of the mind translates into healthier of the body. And so in terms of living a long and healthy life, that connection. Because of course, yeah, you could still get hit by a car at 20. Your child could still get hit by a car at 10 or 15. But that connection, not only does it keep you healthier physically and mentally, emotionally, but when things happen, we actually end up much, much more able to move through them. And so whatever comes, we're able to handle it. We're able to move through it. We're able to learn from it. We're able to use it as a way to peel back layers of ourselves. So that spiritual connection, I would say, is the most important aspect. And then the other piece of that, of course, is that on a very logistic level, a spiritual connection actually leads you to the same type of healthy habits that your doctor would tell you, or that if you go on Google, it would tell you. Because the stuff that we do that's not healthy, the overeating, the eating of too much junk food, the smoking, the drinking, the drugs, that whatever it is, well, we do it because we're looking for something from it. It's not our bodies that are craving the sugar that's going to make my insulin spike and ruin my health. It's not my body that's craving the alcohol or the nicotine. The body does its best to expel it. That's why when people first start smoking, they cough and cough. You have to actually teach yourself to smoke. There's nobody who picks up a cigarette and from the first puff says, "Oh my God, I've been waiting for you my whole life." You have to teach yourself to do it. So the reason we teach ourselves to do that kind of stuff is because there's something lacking somewhere. Why do we stuff ourselves full of food long after we're full? Long after we're even sick? Because there's an inner emptiness. And on some warped but very understandable and natural level, I'm going to try to fill it with chocolate cake if I can't fill it with love. On some level, I feel guilty. I feel sad. I feel empty. I feel pained. And for those reasons, I'm going to harm myself. I'm going to drink. I'm going to use drugs. I'm going to do these things to numb myself so I don't feel the things that I don't want to feel. Maybe I'm going to do them to punish myself on some level. Maybe I don't feel that I deserve to be healthy and happy. So I'm going to unconsciously punish myself. Maybe I'm going to try to unconsciously punish others. You hurt me, now watch. There's as many different psychological reasons for why we do what we do as there are people. But the similarity amongst them is that they're all rooted in a lack of deep spiritual grounding. They're rooted in a lack of awareness of the fullness of who we are. The enoughness of who we are, the completeness of who we are, the rightness of who we are. the amount that each of us deserves to occupy our space on planet Earth. They're rooted in a lack of fulfillment from the inside. So we're trying to pull it in from the outside. And the one solution to all of that, it doesn't, of course, obliterate the need for psychology. Psychology still is a beautiful role. But what spirituality gives us is the foundation to actually understand who we are and where we're going and why we're here and what it's about, and that we are enough and that we are right and that we are deserving. Not necessarily of people to act in a certain way, but of occupying our space, of our life, of happiness, of joy, of peace. And that whatever other people do is just their karmic package. And I don't need to eat myself or drink myself or smoke myself into oblivion just because of what someone else has or hasn't done to me or for me. And so miraculously what we find is we stop doing the things that harm us. And so suddenly we eat only that which we need, only that which is in tune with our bodies. I remember when I first started doing yoga, somebody asked my yoga teacher about cigarette smoking. And, they were trying to stop smoking and it was difficult, and they wanted to start yoga, but did they have to stop smoking before they started yoga? Was that some sort of prerequisite? And my yoga teacher said to him, he said, just start yoga. You automatically will stop smoking. Because as the yoga becomes more and more of who you are, there won't be room in you to be a yogi and to be a smoker. Automatically you will stop that. And on a personal level, I remember when I was late teenager, when I was in college, when I was in graduate school, I used to go to the gym a lot and run a lot on treadmills. And I was stressed, and there was just something about getting on the treadmill and running and running and running and running. And of course, if I was out somewhere where I could run outside, I would run outside. If not, I would run on the treadmill. And just run and run and run until you're sweating, panting. And there was this incredible sense of release, of freedom, of, now that we understand it chemically with the endorphins and whatnot. But for me, it was really the solution to the stress I was experiencing. And when I started doing yoga, I remember vividly one day I'd been doing yoga for maybe 6 months, 9 months, and for that time I was doing both. I was doing the yoga, and I was still running like crazy on the treadmill. One day I walked into the gym, and I stood there, and I looked at the treadmill, and this voice in my mind said to me, I was maybe 22, 23 at the time, and a voice inside my head said to me, "You want me to do what for the next 45 minutes?" And I turned around and walked out. Not that exercise isn't wonderful for us, but that for me, the reason I needed to do it was not so much about the health. It was that I needed it to lower my stress. I needed it to numb myself. I needed it to get out of that place of being present with my life at that time. And suddenly, the yoga had removed that need for me. And suddenly the idea of, running like a hamster until I was going to collapse on a conveyor belt for 45 minutes just no longer was a need that I had. And so this is what happens in our life, whether it's the chocolate cake, whether it's the smoking, whether it's drugs, whether it's whatever we do that is shortening our life or reducing our health. We automatically stop that, or at least lessen that. And so automatically our health is going to improve. But if we begin with it from the spiritual side, then it's not such a struggle. Then it's not just, okay, starting tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, I'm going to be on a diet, and tonight I'm just going to finish off all these cookies because from tomorrow, I'm going to be on a diet. Instead of it being that, it's, hey, wait. This is a temple. This is my medium of consciousness. And tomorrow morning when I sit to meditate, if I finish off this bag of cookies, there is no way I'm going to have a good meditation. Because I'm going to be so sick in the morning that all I'm going to do is keep, burping and having acid come up, and I'm not going to even be able to get out of bed. I'm going to be so bloated. I'm definitely going to oversleep my meditation. And so I don't need to say to myself, no more cookies. What I simply do is start the meditative practice, and it begins to heal the rest.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. How do we take responsibility, yet not feel a sense of doership and feel pressured for results? Okay, so we've talked a lot about karma and the whole concept of karma requiring us not to own the actions, not to have a sense of doership in the actions. But how do we do that? How do we take responsibility without a sense of doership? What we have to understand is we're a vehicle. We're a vessel. Our responsibility is not for the fruit of the action, but our responsibility is for the sincerity of ourself as a tool. And so, if I commit myself to something, to an action, I'm responsible for it. That's for sure. It's my mind, my thoughts that have made that action happen. Yes. And yet, I'm not actually the creator of it. I'm the tool. You know, we speak so frequently about the voice and the microphone. The microphone is the tool. And yet, if it's waterlogged, if it's dusty, it's not going to be a good tool. If it's not connected to the outlet, doesn't matter how good it is, it's not going to work. And so our responsibility is to the sincerity of what we do, knowing that we have no way of controlling the results of it, that we have no way of controlling the fruits of that. This microphone could be the best microphone in the world. And if I've got laryngitis and nothing comes out, there's nothing this microphone can do about it. On the other hand, if something beautiful comes out, the microphone is no more responsible for the laryngitis or a beautiful talk. Neither. All it's responsible for is being a clear, clean, tuned and plugged in tool. And that is what we take responsibility for, is whatever is going to flow through me. I don't have any control of the fruit, but I can control how connected I am. How connected I am to the source of that which is happening. Because if I'm connected, then the flow is going to flow through me. And if I'm not connected, then it doesn't matter how beautiful or polished I am, or expensive I am, or nicely painted I am. If I'm not connected to the source, with the mic, it's the source of electricity. With us, it's that divine source. That's when we talk about getting plugged in, or Pujya Swamiji talks about being connected. We spend so much time focused on what the tool looks like, and very little time focused on whether we're actually connected. And so that's the responsibility we need to take. How have I emptied my tool so that the will of God can flow? How have I gotten the water, gotten the dust out of my tool so the will of God can flow? And that's the same thing as the mic being plugged in or not plugged in. Here it's electricity that's flowing through, and with us, it's that divine will, that flow of nature, that we don't have any control over the fruits of it. We don't have any control of what happens. That's what Krishna reminds us of in the Bhagavad Gita. What we have control over is how sincerely we fulfill that task. Not what fruits come, but how sincerely we fulfill it. And are we plugged in so that really that which needs to flow through us can flow? Because we could have the best lecture, the best opera in the world, and if the mic's not plugged in, nothing's going to flow through. And if it's waterlogged or full of dust, nothing's going to flow through. So that's what our responsibility is. We have no say over that result. But the responsibility is to our duty to be that sincere instrument. And that's how we balance it. What flows through? I'm a tool. But the best tool, the cleanest, clearest, most empty tool, and the most plugged in tool that I can be. That's the responsibility. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.